everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be talking to you guys about how you can choose your firm and insurance choices for uni without being able to go and visit any open days. Choosing universities is hard enough already because there are so many different things to think about, but when you then can't go and visit the cities and the uni campuses, it's even harder. So I just wanted to kind of break things down for you guys a little bit today and talk about maybe some of the main aspects of universities and courses that are important to consider when you're making your decisions, so that if you are still trying to firm and insure choices, then hopefully this will be a bit of a guide for you guys on which areas of things to look at. Personally, I would say the most important thing to think about is the course, because ultimately you're going to be studying this for at least the next 3 years of your life, so you want it to be something that you're going to be interested in, that's going to keep you engaged and that you're going to enjoy studying. Otherwise it's going to be a very long time and probably a waste of time and a waste of money. So you want to make sure that the course is something you're really invested in from the get-go, and there are a lot of things to consider to do with the course, but I think the most important thing is to have a look at the module breakdown at different unis, see what kind of modules you can study, how much of it is compulsory, how much free choice do you have in terms of choosing optional modules. Are you able to take modules outside of your chosen subject so that you can kind of broaden your horizons a little bit, maybe learn a language, do something else from a different department just for a bit of a change. But for other people, you might have a direct plan of exactly what career you want to go into, what area of your subject that you're really interested in, and so the best option for you would then be to pick a uni that allows you to go straight down that path and really focus on that area of your subject. So it depends on what you're looking for, but I think exploring the course modules in detail and comparing and contrasting different opportunities at different unis is a really good place to start. Also, kind of linked to that, if you have a particular career in mind that you want to go into beyond university, then looking at connections that different universities have with graduate employers is a really good thing to do as well. So for me, last year I applied to Bath University, and one thing that drew me into them was they had direct connections to employers in the US, and I was really interested in going to work in America, so for me that really drew me in. And this year when I applied to Sheffield, I noticed that they had direct connections to the Department of Education and different government departments, which again was something I thought I might be interested in, possibly for an internship or something like that. So those kind of things drew me in, and I think if you have some kind of ideas of what path you want to go down, then looking at potential connections between universities and companies is a really good place to start. Other things to think about with the course are things like contact time, so how many contact hours you're going to have a week, and this is going to be varying on different subjects. Things like sciences and maths tend to have more than the humanities, but it depends on the uni as well, and I think it depends on what kind of person you are. If you feel like you want more contact hours, then obviously you want to look for unis that offer you that, but if you feel like you'd rather have a lot more independent study time, then obviously you want to look for unis on that side of things. Also, it's a balance between how you like to be assessed. So for me, I'm much better at exams than coursework, so I tried to go for unis that were predominantly exam-based assessments. But if you're someone that doesn't like exams and you much prefer doing coursework, then you want to go for a uni that is going to assess your degree modules on coursework much more. And having a balance between those different assessments, I think, is an important thing to look into, because if you really don't like exams and you end up on a course that's 90% exam, you're going to really struggle. So that is something to consider as well. Also, something else to think about is how much practical side of things go into your degree. So this is only relevant obviously for certain subjects, but for something like chemistry or biology, obviously there's going to be a certain amount of practical work that you need to do. But if you're someone that really enjoys the practical side of things, then obviously you want to go for a uni that puts more emphasis on that and that will put a higher percentage of your grades onto practical work. Whereas if you much prefer the theory side of your course and you're much happier writing things, then you want to aim for a uni that is more focused on that side of it. Obviously with things like medicine and dentistry, it's not really possible. It's going to be compulsory to do a certain amount of practical work everywhere. But in things like sciences, geography, those kind of areas, drama, then obviously it's going to vary from uni to uni, and that is something to think about. Also, with things like geography where there's potentially field work, have a think about different trips that you might be able to go on either around the UK or abroad. I know someone that's on a geography course that gets to go to Kenya for 10 days in the middle of their second year, which sounds amazing. I know a lot of people doing just kind of day trips to local areas or across the country, so that is things to think about. Extra opportunities that your chosen course is going to provide you is again something that you can take into consideration when you're trying to decide. The final thing I would suggest thinking about in terms of course is there any opportunities to do either study abroad or work placement during your degree? So last year when I applied for maths, other than Oxford, the other 4 choices that I applied to were all study abroad courses, as that was something I was really interested in and really wanted to do. So that was a big priority for me last year, and this year I felt like I didn't want it to be my biggest priority anymore, but it was an added bonus if the course was going to allow me to do it. So when I come to choosing my choices, that is going to be something I take into consideration, because some unis allow me to have a year abroad and others don't this year. So that is something I'm definitely going to be thinking about. And again, if that's something you think you might be interested in, obviously it's something to consider. And the same with work placements. If you think you might like to have a year in industry as a part of your degree, because obviously that's going to give you really good career experience and graduate prospects, then obviously you want to consider which universities are going to allow you to do something like that. Okay, so moving away from thinking about the course itself, the other thing that's really important to consider is how happy do you think you're going to be at a certain university? Can you picture yourself there? And also, can you picture yourself living in the surrounding town or the city? Because obviously this is somewhere you've got to be for the next few years of your life, and you want it to be somewhere that you feel comfortable living in. So in terms of the uni itself, what kind of environment are you looking for? Are you someone that thrives off a really intense academic environment, or do you want something a bit more laid back, a bit more chill, or somewhere in between? Obviously there's going to be unis across the whole spectrum, so thinking about what kind of balance you want is really important. Also thinking about how inclusive the environment is it a really friendly kind of place? Is it quite a small close-knit community feel, or is it a really huge uni where things are maybe a bit more separated? Is it a very competitive kind of environment, or is it very not competitive? I don't know what the word is for that, the opposite. But different things like that are things to consider, I think. And also the city itself, is it somewhere that you can see yourself living in? So do you want a really small town or city, or do you want somewhere huge? So for me, I want London, which is as big as you can get in the UK, but you might want something completely different. So that is something to think about as well. And also what I forgot to mention about the uni is, what do you like about campuses? Do you want a campus uni or a city uni? And within that, do you like a smaller campus, or do you want a really big campus? And there is a lot of things to think about in terms of uni and location, etc. And I did throw quite a few things at you just then, but I think thinking about a few of those things, obviously there's more, but that's just a few suggestions to kind of start the ball rolling. Those kind of things I think are really good to consider when you're trying to decide. Another couple of things to think about in terms of the location is, first of all, if you're wanting to look for some part-time work while you're at uni, or maybe internship opportunities, volunteering, anything like that, you want to look at what kind of opportunities are going to be available to you in the local area to that university. And the other thing to say is, think about the distance from home. Think about how, not necessarily just the distance, but how practical it is to get home. Is there a direct train line or coach or something that you can get straight home on, or are you taking your car and you can very easily get back down the motorway? How costly is that going to be? Is it going to be really expensive to travel back often, or is it going to be very cheap? Because obviously if you're on a student loan, you want to limit your costs where you can. So I think those kind of things are good to just have a little think about. It's not necessarily the most important thing, but they're just little extras to keep in consideration, I would say. So the final thing that I just want to talk about is the finance aspect of things and the cost of living, because obviously this is going to vary massively from uni to uni and city to city, and ultimately you want to go somewhere that you're actually going to be able to afford for the next 3 years. So it is really important to think about this stuff in a lot of detail. So the first thing I would suggest is, if you're eligible for student finance from your parents' income, then you can go online and there's a student finance calculator that will tell you how much you're eligible for each year, and you can then use that to work out how much you're going to get, how much extra income you might need to be able to get from other places. And this is a good starting indication. And another thing to remember is, although the cost of living in London is a lot higher, your student finance is also a lot higher. So I think it's about £3,000 extra to try and help with that extended living cost. So that is something to remember with London. It's easy to look at the prices and think, oh my god, this is crazy, but you do get extra loans to help you out with that, so it is manageable if you do it in the right way. And another thing I would suggest, once you know how much you're going to be eligible for, how much money you're going to have roughly each year, is to then look at things like the accommodation in each uni, the transport, food costs, different costs that you're definitely going to incur and you're definitely going to have to pay and won't be avoidable, and try and make some sort of budget for each uni and each accommodation option to allow you to see how much you can actually afford, how much money you're going to have left over depending on what option you go for, and this will just help you have a much clearer idea of how affordable different choices are for you, which one is more realistic, and it just helps to have it down in black and white so you can see actually how possible different options are, and it does really help with your decision. That is something I've been doing recently and I found it so helpful. It is kind of time consuming, but I think it's a really good thing to be able to do. It's definitely worth investing your time in because it does really help. However, if you feel like budgeting is just really not your thing, you don't want to sit down and try and do that, then I would say the most important thing to think about is whereabouts in the UK is your university located, because if it's London, obviously that's going to be the most expensive option probably, but if it's somewhere in the south, that's generally going to be more expensive than somewhere in the north of England. Scotland is a different story because places like Edinburgh are also very expensive, but generally in England, if you think about, say, Bath or Bristol, the cost of living there tends to be a lot higher than somewhere like Manchester or Sheffield, Leeds. They're much bigger cities than Bristol and Bath and places like that, but cost of living in the north is just generally a lot cheaper in this country, not just in terms of accommodation and rent, but also in terms of just transport links, getting food to go out and get takeaways, meals out, things like that, nightclubs, everything is just a lot cheaper. And I think that is something, even without doing a budget, that's something to think about, is whereabouts in the UK is your university located and what are the kind of prices like. And the final thing that I just want to mention in terms of cost of living and affordability is go onto individual university websites and check if you're eligible for any of their bursaries or scholarships, as if you're looking at a university that you feel like is maybe slightly less affordable for you, then it might be that you're eligible for bursaries that will help you cover those costs and actually make it a much more convenient and affordable option. So for example, a lot of the London unis tend to have quite high bursaries because the cost there is so huge, but a lot of other unis have very generous bursary schemes as well, and obviously depending on your household income and other additional factors, then you will be eligible for varying amounts, and you might get quite a lot or you might get a little bit, but even sometimes just a little bit will make all the difference. So it is worth checking out how much you might be eligible for in different places and factoring that into the cost and how much money you're going to have each year, and that just might help you sway your decision a little bit. Okay, so that actually brings me to the end of today's video. I really hope that this has been helpful for you guys. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this and it's given you a few tips if you're still struggling to choose between unis. And if you want to see more about my own journey, which universities I've applied for this year, how I'm getting on with my application, then make sure to watch my previous video, and make sure to give this a massive thumbs up if you've enjoyed. And if you want to see more content surrounding sixth form, uni applications, gap year, that kind of thing, then make sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time with a brand new video. Bye!